The Mockery, the transport shuttle carrying the human delegation, rattled as it docked with Galactic Assembly Station 7. Inside, Marcus Chen tightened his grip on the worn toolbox that had belonged to his grandfather. Around him, his team of 4 engineers checked their equipment one last time. They had traveled 3 months through hyperspace gates to reach this moment. Humanity's first invitation to the stellar engineering competition. Elena Rodriguez, their electrical specialist, peered through the viewport at the massive station. It gleamed with technologies that made Earth's best facilities look like cave paintings. Beside her, Viktor Petrov inventoried their supplies for the 10th time, his mechanical engineering background making him acutely aware of how basic their tools appeared. The youngest member, Amara Okonkwo, fresh from MIT's aerospace program, bounced with nervous energy while reviewing holographic blueprints on her tablet. Marcus stood and addressed his team. They had trained for 2 years after Earth received the invitation, a message that had shocked humanity. The Galactic Council had finally deemed humans advanced enough to participate in their prestigious engineering competition. The catch was that Earth could only send one team with whatever they could carry. No fabricators, no molecular assemblers, just the tools and knowledge they brought with them. The airlock cycled open, revealing Ambassador Kurth of the Zalani Commonwealth. The crystalline being towered at 3 meters tall, its body refracting light into rainbow patterns. When it spoke, the translator rendered its harmonics into flat English. "Welcome, humans. The other contestants have already arrived. You are adequately equipped for the competition?" Marcus hefted his toolbox, the metal tools inside clanking. "We brought everything we need, Ambassador." The Zalani's form flickered, what passed for amusement among their kind. How quaint. "Please follow me to the assembly hall for the competition briefing." They walked through corridors that hummed with energy fields instead of walls, past viewing ports showing ships that defied every principle of engineering the humans knew. Elena whispered calculations under her breath, trying to understand how a vessel could be simultaneously solid and gaseous. Victor studied the station's construction, noting joints and stress points out of habit. Amara recorded everything on her tablet, determined to bring back as much knowledge as possible. The assembly hall stretched larger than any sports stadium on Earth. 5 other teams had already assembled, each in their designated zones. The humans' arrival drew immediate attention, though not the kind they had hoped for. The Karathi delegation, beings of pure energy contained in mechanical shells, pulsed with what the translator indicated was laughter. Their team leader, a swirling mass of plasma named Flux Prima, projected its thoughts to the entire hall. "The humans brought manual tools. Look, they have cutting implements that require physical force." The Methari, silicon-based creatures that looked like walking geometric equations, vibrated in their own form of amusement. Their spokesperson, designated Angle 7, commented through precisely modulated sound waves. "Our analysis indicates they lack even basic quantum manipulators. How do they expect to compete with hammers and welding torches?" Marcus felt his team tense behind him. Elena's jaw clenched, Victor's hands balled into fists, and Amara stopped recording. But Marcus smiled and walked forward to the designated human zone. "We'll manage," he said simply. The competition overseer, a member of the ancient Primarch species, materialized in the center of the hall. Its form was indistinct, constantly shifting between dimensions. When it spoke, reality itself seemed to vibrate. "Welcome, contestants, to the 4,847th Stellar Engineering Competition. The challenge is simple. Construct a functional faster-than-light capable vessel within 30 standard rotations. You will be assigned materials based on your species' technological rating." A holographic display showed the rankings. The Karathi, as energy beings, received exotic matter and controlled singularities. The Methari got programmable matter and quantum processors. The Drex hive mind obtained bioneural components and organic superconductors. The Aquari were given liquid metal composites and pressure-resistant crystalline matrices. The Vorthan Alliance received temporal stabilizers and causality-locked alloys. The humans' assignment appeared last, drawing another wave of laughter from the assembled aliens. Species human, technological rating, primitive tool users, assigned materials, scrapyard section 9. Ambassador Kurth floated beside them, its crystalline form tinkling with sympathy. Section 9 contains decommissioned vessels and obsolete components from the past 1,000 cycles. It is traditionally where we dispose of failed experiments. The Metharies Angle 7 projected a perfect holographic cube that spoke. The humans will spend 30 rotations attempting to understand technology beyond their comprehension. This competition is already concluded. Marcus picked up his grandfather's toolbox and headed for the exit. Team, let's go see what we're working with. The journey to Section 9 took them through the station's industrial sector. They passed the other team's work areas, each a marvel of advanced technology. The Karathi had already begun assembling a framework of pure energy, manipulating forces the humans couldn't even properly observe. The Drex hive mind's 1,000 bodies moved in perfect synchronization, growing their vessel like a massive organism. Section 9 was exactly as advertised, a graveyard of failed dreams and broken technology. Mountains of twisted metal stretched into the darkness of the massive hangar. Cables sparked randomly from damaged power cores. The air smelled of oxidized metals and burnt plastics. The other teams had workshop spaces with controlled environments and precise atmospheric conditions. The humans had a junkyard. Victor kicked a piece of corroded hull plating. They gave us garbage. No, Marcus said, setting down his toolbox with a decisive thud. They gave us raw materials. Elena pulled out a handheld scanner, one of the few pieces of advanced technology Earth could provide. Some of these power cores are still functional, just damaged. The hull plating is mostly intact, just ugly. Amara was already climbing a pile of wreckage, her tablet documenting everything. There's an old Primark engine here. It's from maybe 500 cycles ago, but the design is sound. Marcus opened his grandfather's toolbox, revealing tools that had been in his family for generations. A hammer worn smooth from use, wrenches that had assembled everything from bicycles to fusion reactors, a welding torch that had helped rebuild Shanghai after the floods. These weren't just tools, they were humanity's heritage of making do with what was available. Listen up, team, Marcus announced. Every species here is building what they know. The Karathi will make an energy construct because that's what Karathi do. The Mathari will create mathematical perfection because that's their nature. But humans? We've always done one thing better than anyone else. What's that? Victor asked, though a smile was already forming. We improvise, we adapt. We take things that shouldn't work together and make them sing. Marcus picked up his hammer. They think these tools are primitive? Fine. Let's show them what primitive tools in human hands can accomplish. Elena was already sketching designs on a salvaged display screen. If we can couple the Primark engine to a Karathi power distributor, there's a broken one over there, we might be able to create a hybrid system. Victor examined a damaged Mathari computational core. This is fried, but the hardware is intact. We could rewire it, bypass the quantum processors, and run it on conventional electronics. Amara had found something else. There's a quarry pressure shielding here, cracked but repairable. We could use it for the hull, make something that could survive any environment. They worked through the night cycle, not building yet, just planning. The other teams had retired to luxury quarters, confident in their superiority. The humans stayed in the scrapyard, mapping every piece of salvage, understanding not what things were designed to do, but what they could be made to do. By morning, when the other teams arrived at their pristine workshops, they found the humans already working. The sound of hammering echoed through the industrial sector, the sharp crack of manual welding torches, the screech of metal being cut and shaped by hand. Flux Prima pulsed with amusement. Listen to them. Such primitive sounds. They're actually hitting things with hammers. But Marcus smiled as he worked. Every strike of his hammer was precise, learned from his grandfather who had learned from his grandfather. These weren't random impacts but calculated applications of force. Elena's welding wasn't crude fusion, but artistic joining of incompatible metals using techniques developed over centuries of human engineering. The triumph. The second week began with the other teams making significant progress on their vessels. The Karathi's energy ship pulsed with controlled power, its form shifting between states of matter at will. The Mathari had constructed a perfect geometric design that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Drex hive mind's biological vessel pulsated with life, growing larger each day as they fed it nutrients and genetic instructions. The humans, however, appeared to be building a disaster. Their construction looked like someone had crashed several different ships together and decided to call it a day. Pieces from a dozen different species technologies jutted out at odd angles. Wires and cables ran along the exterior like exposed veins. The hull was a patchwork of different metals. Some sections mirror-bright, others rust-red. Still others the deep black of Vorthan combat armor they'd salvaged. Ambassador Kurth visited on the 15th day, its crystalline form reflecting concern. The other contestants are commenting on your progress. They believe you are constructing what they call a monument to failure. Marcus paused from where he was manually riveting two incompatible pieces of hull together. His face was streaked with grease, his hands cut and bleeding from sharp metal edges. Let them comment. We're on schedule. Schedule for what? Kurth asked, genuinely curious. Elena looked up from where she was splicing a Karathi energy conduit to a human-made copper wire system. To fly, Ambassador. It might not be pretty, but it'll fly. The truth was that the humans were doing something no other species had attempted. They weren't building according to any single design philosophy. Instead, they were creating a mongrel ship, taking the best from every piece of salvage and forcing it to work together through sheer determination and basic engineering principles. Victor had spent 3 days with just a hammer and chisel, manually carving connection points into a Mathari computational core, because their tools couldn't interface with the quantum locks. But once he was done, they had a navigation system that could calculate jumps faster than anything Earth had ever produced. Amara had taken the broken Primarch engine and rebuilt it using parts from 7 different species, technologies. It shouldn't have worked. The power frequencies were incompatible. The materials had different thermal expansions and the control system spoke different mathematical languages. But she made them work by adding buffers, compensators, and manual overrides, all built from scrap and controlled by switches and levers that required physical operation. The other teams began to take notice when the humans performed their first power test on day 20. The entire Section 9 lit up with a roar that shook the station. Their hybrid engine, ugly as it was, produced more raw thrust than any of the elegant designs being built in the pristine workshops. Flux Prima floated over to investigate, its energy form crackling with disbelief. How are you generating such power output with such primitive construction? Victor grinned, his face black with engine grease. We call it redundancy. Every system backs up every other system. If the Karathi power distributor fails, the Mathari circuits take over. If those fail, we have good old-fashioned human wiring as backup. But the inefficiency must be enormous. Angle 7 calculated, its geometric form spinning with confusion. 15% efficiency loss, Elena admitted. But we compensated by overpowering everything. When you're building from scrap, you don't aim for perfect. You aim for functional with a massive safety margin. The Drex hive mind's 1,000 voices spoke in unison. Your vessel will be too heavy to achieve faster than light speeds with such redundant systems. Amara laughed, a sound that echoed through the hangar. That's why we stripped everything non-essential. No artificial gravity, no comfort systems, no food synthesizers. Just engines, hull, and navigation. It's not a luxury liner. It's a proof of concept. Day 25 brought the first real test. Each team had to demonstrate their vessel's structural integrity. The elegant ships of the other species passed with flying colors, their advanced materials and perfect construction handling the stress tests easily. When it came time for the human vessel, the other teams gathered to watch what they assumed would be a spectacular failure. The ship looked even worse under the harsh testing lights. Welding marks scarred every surface. Rivets studded the hull like metallic acne. Cables and pipes ran along the exterior because there hadn't been room inside for everything. The stress test began. Pressure increased. The elegant ships of the other species had handled the test silently, their advanced materials distributing stress invisibly. The human ship groaned. It creaked. Joints that shouldn't exist in modern engineering popped and settled, but it held more pressure, the kind that would crush a normal Earth vessel. The patchwork hull flexed, different metals expanding at different rates. The other teams waited for the explosive decompression. It never came. Instead, the human ship did something unexpected. It adapted. The flexing of different metals actually distributed the stress in ways the designers hadn't predicted. The crude welding created flex points that absorbed pressure rather than transmitted it. The external cables and pipes, initially a sign of poor design, acted as additional structural support. Marcus stood at the control panel, watching readings on displays they'd salvaged from 3 different species technologies. Hull integrity at 80% and holding. The test continued to maximum pressure. The human ship survived. On day 28, they installed the final component, the faster-than-light drive. It was a masterpiece of improvisation. The core was Primarch technology, the power distribution was Karathi, the navigation was Mathari, the control systems were Vorthon, the hull harmonics were Aquari, and holding it all together was human engineering, wires, solder, rivets, and prayer. The final day arrived. Each vessel would attempt a faster-than-light jump to a beacon stationed 1 light-year from the station. The journey should take less than a minute for a successful vessel. The Karathi went first. Their energy ship dissolved into a stream of particles, reforming instantly at the beacon. Perfect. The Mathari followed. Their geometric marvel folded space around itself, appearing at the beacon through pure mathematical probability. Flawless. The Drex hive mind's biological ship opened what looked like a wound in space and swam through. The Aquari's vessel flowed like liquid through dimensions. The Vorthon ship simply ceased to exist in one place and began existing in another. Then came the humans. Marcus sat in the pilot's seat, really just a salvaged chair they'd welded to the floor. The controls were a mixture of holographic displays, physical switches, and one lever that Victor had fashioned from a piece of hull plating. Elena monitored power systems on 3 different screens, each from a different species technology. Victor stood ready at manual overrides, prepared to hit things with his wrench if necessary. Amara ran final calculations on her tablet, the only piece of Earth technology actively involved in the jump. All systems showing ready, Elena announced. Power at 105%. Navigation locked, Amara confirmed. I think the Mathari computer is arguing with the Vorthon stabilizer about the nature of spacetime. Engine temperature approaching critical, Victor reported. But that's normal for us. Marcus gripped the makeshift throttle lever. Let's show them what humans can do. He pushed the lever forward. The ship screamed. Every joint, every weld, every rivet protested, as forces they were never designed to handle tore through the structure. The different technologies fought each other, creating harmonics that shouldn't exist. The engine roared like a wounded animal. The watching aliens expected an explosion. Instead, space tore open in front of the human vessel. Not the clean portals the other ships had created, but a ragged wound in reality, sparking with energy discharge and probability fluctuations. The human ship didn't gracefully enter faster-than-light travel. It punched through the barrier of light speed like a battering ram. Inside, the humans held on as their ship shook itself nearly apart. Every system redlined. Alarms blared in 6 different languages. The hull groaned like a sailing ship in a storm. But they moved, through space faster than light, in a vessel built from garbage and held together by human stubbornness. 30 seconds passed. The other teams began to worry. 40 seconds. Ambassador Kurth's form flickered with concern. 50 seconds. Flux Prima pulsed nervously. At 58 seconds, space at the beacon tore open again. The human ship didn't emerge so much as explode back into normal space, trailing sparks and venting gas from a dozen minor hull breaches. It spun twice before Victor managed to fire the maneuvering thrusters, really just modified fire suppressors from an old Aquari vessel. They had made it. The assembly hall fell silent as the human ship limped back to the station, took 4 tries to dock properly, and finally settled with a groan of protesting metal. Marcus emerged first, his face split by an enormous grin. His uniform was torn. His hands were bleeding from grabbing sharp edges during the violent jump, and something in the ship behind him was definitely on fire. We made it, he announced to the assembled crowd. The Primarch overseer materialized before them. For the first time in the competition's history, it seemed genuinely surprised. Your vessel succeeded, though our sensors indicate it suffered 17 critical system failures during the jump. 18, Victor corrected, appearing with a fire extinguisher. The coffee maker exploded too. Your construction violated every principle of advanced engineering. Angle 7 calculated, its form spinning with confusion. You mixed incompatible technologies, used manual controls for quantum systems, and held critical components together with rivets and prayer, Elena supplied helpfully. The Drex hive mind's 1,000 voices spoke in unison. How did you succeed where logic says you should have failed? Marcus set down his grandfather's toolbox, the tools inside still rattling from their violent journey. Because humans don't just use tools. We make tools work for us. Every piece of technology in that scrapyard was designed for one specific purpose, by one specific species. But humans? We've never met a tool we couldn't adapt, a system we couldn't modify, or a problem we couldn't solve with enough duct tape and determination. Amara held up her tablet, showing the jump telemetry. Our ship isn't pretty, and it certainly isn't efficient, but it flew. We took the discarded failures of a dozen species and made them work together. That's what humans do. We don't just engineer, we improvise. The Karathi's Flux Prima pulsed thoughtfully. You built a functional faster-than-light vessel from literal garbage using tools we consider museum pieces. Yes, Marcus replied simply. Your species' technological rating requires immediate re-evaluation, the Primarch Overseer announced. Any species that can achieve faster-than-light travel using hammers and manual welding cannot be classified as primitive. Ambassador Kurth floated forward, its crystalline form shimmering with what might have been respect. The humans have reminded us of something we had forgotten in our pursuit of perfection. Sometimes the most advanced solution is the simple one that works. The competition officially ended with no clear winner. Each species had succeeded in their own way, but unofficially everyone knew that the humans had achieved something unique. They hadn't just built a ship. They had built a bridge between technologies, forcing incompatible systems to work in harmony through sheer human ingenuity. As the team prepared to leave, other species engineers approached them. Not with mockery now, but with questions. How had they made the Karathi power system work with Mathari circuits? How had they manually programmed a quantum computer with physical switches? How had they welded 7 different types of metal that shouldn't even exist in the same temperature range? The humans shared their knowledge freely, demonstrating techniques with their primitive tools. They showed how a simple hammer, in skilled hands, could achieve what force fields and molecular manipulators accomplished through complexity. They explained how understanding the basic principles of physics allowed them to bridge the gaps between incompatible technologies. 3 months later, when the human team returned to Earth, they brought more than just the knowledge gained from the competition. They brought a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't the most advanced species nor the most powerful, but they were possibly the most adaptable. The patchwork ship they'd built was studied by every major species in the galaxy, not for its elegance or efficiency, but for its lesson. It stood as proof that with enough determination, creativity, and basic tools, any problem could be solved. Marcus kept his grandfather's toolbox, now scarred from its journey across the galaxy. Sometimes, late at night in his workshop, he would open it and remember the moment when the entire galaxy learned what humans had always known. The tool doesn't make the engineer. The engineer makes the tool work. The stellar engineering competition was never the same after that year. A new category was added: creative integration. It celebrated not the most advanced or elegant solution, but the one that achieved the impossible through unconventional means. And every year, when new species joined the competition with their perfect technologies and advanced theories, someone would point to the human section and remind them of the time a team of humans built a starship from scrap metal, held it together with rivets and determination, and made it fly on pure stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. The greatest lesson the galaxy learned that day was simple: never underestimate a human with a toolbox and a problem to solve. Because while other species built with technology, humans built with something more powerful: ingenuity born from millions of years of making do with whatever was at hand. The scrapyard of Section 9 became a monument, visited by engineers from across the galaxy, not to see advanced technology, but to understand the human mindset that could look at garbage and see potential, that could hold a hammer and reshape the impossible. And somewhere in that scrapyard, if you looked carefully, you could still find the burn marks from where the humans had worked, the cut metal where they'd salvaged parts, and the small plaque they'd left behind. It read simply, "Humans were here. We made it work."